You've got two very, very different communities. People from Ashington who've faced a whole range of socio-economic changes, have had various different cultural resources that they could draw on to deal with those challenges. People in Aboriginal Australian communities who couldn't appear more different at the surface, but are actually trying to deal with similar sort of challenges, socio-economic challenges. And the idea is that members of the communities come together to live in each other's communities for about a month, to talk about the shared challenges that they face and potentially look at possible policy suggestions, institutional developments that they can deploy based on traditional cultural commitments to resist some of the things that both communities are facing at the minute. So Vicky is a community organiser, so she goes around the community, tries to drum up some sort of consensus about social action. And she's organised a group from Ashington to go down to Australia. We spent a month down in Brisbane recently in March, and this is the return leg. So Mary and Bob, who's another Aboriginal traditional owner, an elder if you like, and a couple of other people have come across and are spending a month here. So I suppose the purpose of meeting with you today would be twofold really, to explain the importance of sport, to have a conversation about sport, because Ashington's obviously had disproportionate success in terms of producing sporting figures, and also to talk about the political agenda now in the wake of the election, the disastrous election in certain respects. So I suppose it's quite a complex series of conversations to have, but I'm very grateful to Michael for bringing you here to just have a bit of a chat about these sorts of things.
First of all, welcome to sunny Ashington.
Sunny Ashington.
One thing we haven't got in common with Brisbane is the weather.
No,
but I'm not sure, I've got to be honest, I'm not sure whether we've got striking similarities. And I've discussed the project with Tony Bennett.
Yeah,
Tony Bennett was he's in my class at school actually, Tony. And I've been discussing it with the press, who are seeking to suggest that we're extremely similar, and I really don't think that is the case. I think there is similarities, but those similarities could be anywhere in the northeast, anywhere in different communities where we've been hit traditionally by the loss of heavy industry, and it's had an impact on unemployment, an impact on social consequences for people who live in the area, very similar to what's happened in and around Australia as well with the Aboriginal community. That's a fact, but them similarities could be between lots of communities in Australia and lots of communities in the UK. But nevertheless, it's really interesting that somebody's taken an interest, because we know, I fully understand the way the Aboriginal community is being impacted upon in Australia, not just the last few years, but for generations. We've got two fantastic sportsmen on the world scene. And Ashington is blessed with a lot of sports people who met it to different levels, but you've got Stephen, who was once the fastest bowler in the world, lives in Ashington, and you've got Mark, whose career has just started, who has got the potential to be in the next Ashes series. Hopefully he'll be in the Ashes series. Two absolutely fantastic examples of what we can produce here in Ashington. It's absolutely brilliant.
Wonderful.
I think from a sporting aspect, I think from you mentioned the pitch side of it. I would say we had always, from a sports side, we had always something to aspire to. The Jackie Milburn first up, everybody, even when they were growing up, 40s, 50s, 60s, Newcastle was, the big thing to play for. And then, I still sit with him now on a Friday afternoon. I've actually just left him. I rushed up here, and he's sitting in the golf club, and Jack Charlton, Jack and Bobby, who both won the World Cup, both from Ashington. But I think when they won the World Cup, it was something for this town, and people in this town, really sort of grabbed a hold of sport. And there was a wide range of sports. We've got golfers from this town as well, and like I say, I've had my time. I've been in Australia. I think I've toured Australia 3 times, Ashes, twice with academy, one with the World 11. So I've been to Australia about 6 times. I've got a 16-year-old daughter who was last week, and she's been to Australia 5 times. And it's great education for her to go. And if England have got the Ashes coming up, and if they've got any chance of winning, it's because of him. So fingers crossed. Not only is he stays sort of injury free, he puts up a good show, because I think if not for him, I think England have got a mountain to climb in that. But that's sport in this area, and it's great. You see here on a Saturday afternoon, at the end of the season, there was 350 people coming to watch, the local area, the local team. And you talk about Newcastle, and like to think they keep playing badly, because if they do that, we'll have 500 by Christmas. A lot of supporters will come and watch this standard of football, because I think it typifies what the area is, and it's a hard working, but it's a driven area. Like you said, it's industry's gone, it's gone and sort of been pushed to one side a little bit. I think the desire to achieve, and the burning desire to achieve, and that's whether it's education, sport, or in any other walk of life. There's a massive hunger in this area to achieve something, and I think that's why Asherton has always achieved. There's not just myself and Mark. There's another professional cricketer from Asherton. There's been 2 professional golfers from Asherton. So it's not, I don't know what the size, square footage is of the town, but considering the rest of the northeast and other parts of the country, there's not many people can say what they've done compared to what we've done in this area, and I think that's a lot to do with the history and the traditions that this town's got.
I can say that it's not truly an equivalent, because I'm talking about there's a place called Cherbourg, which is like a reserve, ex-reserve, like a reservation, and it has produced a lot of sportsmen, Aboriginal sportswomen, I suppose, to run Kathy Freeman, yes, she comes from there.
I think that's where Andrew Simons is from.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Andrew Simons?
Oh, right. Yeah, look, I'm sorry, I'm not a follower of sport.
Yeah, but I think that's where he's. Yeah, I think he's from. Well, I know he's from the same. I think he's from the same place as Kathy Freeman. So I assume that's the same thing. Yeah. I've had a few ding dongs for Andrew Simons, I tell you. And it's. But he's. Yeah, I'm sure that's where he's from. So
I have to confess I don't follow sport. I'm probably the only Aboriginal person in the country who doesn't follow sport. But yeah, Cherbourg is a tiny place. I suppose it's like a village, a couple of thousand people, but it's produced all these famous people in their own right, like Kathy Freeman. And there are Aboriginal cricketers, but they don't seem to, quite good, but don't seem to get into the
Australian side.
Yeah, into the Australian side. I think there's all kinds of social reasons for it, or whatever. I'm not quite sure, but they have been quite good, and they do like cricket. They always watch. And I know it sounds probably odd to you, but it's. They're usually on the side of whoever Australia is playing against. So I won't go into why, but that's the way it is. Really. So they'll be watching this when you do come out.
Well, they'll be supporting him then. They'll be supporting him for the next 6 months.
Oh,
Talking to like the community and stuff, like we're saying, just mentioned support there. The amount of support I've had from this community for the last couple of weeks has been phenomenal. I'm sure he'll tell you the same, that we tend to stick together. I don't know if that's through hard times or whatever around the town, but the amount of support I've had has been phenomenal, and everyone that I've been around have wished as well and stuff, and I'm sure he had the same. So I think as an area we tend to look after our own and stick together, and I think that's a brilliant thing for this place.
It's a good thing as well, to ask Mark the question when it comes to it, is that when you are on the field and you are in sort of a pressurised situation, it's always nice to look in the stands or knowing that people are watching, and that drives you. It was driving me on, and I'm sure. Come Wednesday afternoon, Monday afternoon when you were at Lord's, trying to take the wickets at the end, I'm sure you had people, and your mum and dad in the crowd, and other people in the crowd.
Yeah, friends, mum and dad, people like that. So, like he says, when you look up and you see. It's sort of like a comfort thing. You see people from where you're from, and you're in a strange environment, London, that's multicultural, and there's a lot of other things happening. When you see your family and where you're from, it gives you that little drive and little spirit to think, I'm going to do this for them. So it was brilliant.
It's so important. obviously you found it. Support for young people, especially sport. The whole family will come out. Relatives, and of course the Aboriginal family is big, you know, it's second and third cousins and everything, so there's hundreds of people usually supporting young people. That's fantastic.
I think what Mark says is absolutely right. These two fellas will be heroes for the rest of their lives in this community, in Ashington. And we tend to do that if somebody achieves even at lesser levels to what these guys have. We get behind them and we support them and understand they've got the support of everybody. And it is fantastic, man.
It is, yes.
And I think it comes back from the mining days.
Yes.
This was once the biggest mining town in Europe, if not the world. The one colliery alone in Ashington employed more than 5,000 people. And that community is still here, although we are losing it because of the fact that the coal industry is now gone in the UK. But the people are still here, and people are proud to be from this place. We've got a different dialect to anybody else anywhere in the world. And you can always tell when somebody's from Ashington. And if somebody says you're from Ashington, you normally are, because we're completely different. But I think one thing is, you know, we have been hit badly because of the closure of different industries. We've got high levels of unemployment, we've got high levels of unemployment, we've got high levels of poverty, we've got increasing levels of drugs, we've got increasing levels of child poverty. So we've got lots of problems. But you know, the people in this area, they are extremely resilient, and they do get behind each other and they do support each other, and it does help. We've got a lot of work to do here, but you know, the likes of these fellas, it gives people, the young people in particular, lots of hope, aspiration, that aspire to do the same as what they, and why shouldn't it? We've got two lads here who have been on the world scene, and Mark's got an Alacombe as well, and they live less than 100 yards from each other in the centre of Ashington. That's fantastic, and everybody gets behind them. We've had some bad times in Ashington, but generally the people are fantastic, resilient, and fully supportive.
I went to the museum yesterday, the museum.
Woodhorn Museum.
Yes, yeah, and gee, I can certainly see why people are resilient. The history of mining, and I've only ever seen it like in movies or documentaries or something, but when you come face to face with it, you know, it's quite moving. Yeah, you know, the actual historical accounting of it, you know, how people were, what they had to do going into the mines, what happened.
Well, the mines were a fantastic place to work. It was very difficult, very tough, but that's what built these communities. And I've got great relationships with the Australian miners, the CFMEU. Who I'm invited there next month to their centenary conference in Sydney. I've been 5 or 6 times to Australia, had some fantastic time, got some great relationships with people in the communities there. But I mean, Stephen's dad worked in the pit, and his granddad worked in the pit, and your granddad worked in the pit. So these are like pit people.
Pit people, yes.
It's in their blood. Luckily enough, they excelled at sports, so they weren't in the pit, you know. So, but I mean, listen, the pit people, and you know, the thing is, they're proud of it.
Yes.
They're proud of their history and their traditions, and proud of where they live, and that's why everybody is so proud of them. Never forget your roots. I think that's fair, isn't it, lads?
I couldn't agree more.
I was just going to say, I mean, you're talking about the connection here. You two lads, obviously, as really successful sportsmen. I think if you're in other parts of the country, you might move away, you know, but you've stayed here, and I think that probably says something about Northumbrians and like people around here in general. Soon I've lived abroad and things like that, and I always get like really visceral homesickness. I know Vicky had visceral homesickness, these sorts of things. Is there something about growing up in a community like this that means that you're just connected to it for the rest of your lives almost in some way?
Well, I've been, not as many times as Harmy like, but I've been abroad and played cricket elsewhere. You always have that little thing in the back of your mind where you miss home and you miss your family and friends. But I think in modern day technology, you never a phone call away, or you can go on Skype and the computer and things. So it's always good to stay in touch with people. But I certainly enjoy coming home and feeling that relaxed feeling of being back and around me family and friends and having that support group. And I think whenever you're away, you do get that homesickness because it's such a tight group that the community that you're in. But you know that when you're away, you're there to do the business, so there's always a chance to come back.
I think that's, the business part is right. When you're on tour and when you're playing cricket and away and you're doing your job, you probably, for about 14 hours a day, you're in a place you don't want to be. For the simple fact is, you go where the cricket is, you play your cricket, and then all of a sudden you're wasting 14 hours of your life to get back to the next day to go and do your job again. So when you do that, I did that for nearly sort of 14, 15 years with different tours I went on, every sort of 6 months. So when you come back, it's more of a special place when you come back, and people can knock it and people can say whatever you want. But I didn't spend a great deal of time during my international time here, because even when you're playing cricket at home, you're in London, you're in Birmingham, you're in Manchester, so you're away. So you appreciate it more when you actually come back. But this is the only place I've known. I've never needed to move away, and that's the thing. I played at Durham, which is 40-minute drive away. I never needed to move away. I enjoyed the drive back from Durham to Asherton because it was comfortable. You got whatever happened at your system on that road back, and it's a pain in the backside sometimes, that little pilot medical centre, but it's something that I would never ever swap, and I didn't need to. My kids were happy here. The kids love the schools here. They love the area. They've got all the friends. So 40 minutes drive every day to make sure they're happy.
When you say that, the players, and it was rumoured that you got homesick very quickly. Is that the same sort of feeling with the other players in the dressing room? Did they feel as if they were there to do the job, then it was a waste of 14 hours or 12 hours or what? Because different people are treated differently. But coming from a community like this, is it different for different players?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you say coming from a community like this. Cricket was, when I first started in the sort of international stuff, it was still kind of an elitist. Old school tie, public school boys. That was like that. So 2/3 of my team went to university, so they were used to being away all the time. Most of them went to boarding school, so they were used to being away all the time. Where probably around about the early 2000s, England's sort of dynamics, the team changed, and they got a lot of working class lads in. Flintoff from Preston, Hogarth from sort of the Yorkshire area, Simon Jones from in Wales, in the mining area in Wales, and all of a sudden that became a collective unit who were a lot stronger, a lot more determined when times were hard, and you could really sort of, Michael Vaughan always used to say, I was lucky. I had 3 or 4 top players, but I also had 5 or 6 fast bowlers through my time who were brought up in such a way that they weren't given everything. They had to work hard for it, and as a bowler, because of the strains it puts on your body and the way you feel, that helps. And I think that's what helped me, because very rarely did I get injured until the latter part of my career, but it was just a case of, right, tablets, injection, let's get out there, because I'm not going to give my place up, and 2, I'm a bad watcher, so I need to be playing all the time. I think that was driven inside me to keep going, and I think that's from where you come from.
Coming back to it and putting into community, being touchable, meeting the kids, going to the schools, being in there with them, that's where they're looking up to you, and that's where your support's coming from.
Well, we were them kids. I was one a long time ago. Ian was one even longer time ago. not so long ago. But you come through that and you see people, and when I sit on a Friday afternoon with Jack Charlton at the golf club, and a couple of the old blokes will sit and have a cup of coffee and like a sandwich, and then he'll leave. And then when you leave, and I'll say it all the time, we are so lucky and blessed. We're in the company of greatness, because there was only 12 men win the World Cup for England, and in my lifetime, I think there'll only be ever them 12 men win the World Cup for England, because of the way the football is. I don't think England will win the World Cup for a while. He is one of 9 still alive, and he's sitting right in front of you having a conversation. This is a country which is blessed, and it was just football mad, football orientated. And there's a man there from Asherton who is one of 9 who's still alive, who won the World Cup. He's a bit ill health, but he sits there, and I sit with him, what, 2 or 3 times a month, and even when he walks in, the hairs in the back of your neck from a sportsman stand up, because this is greatness. Jack Charlton's walked in, and it's fantastic, honestly it is. He probably doesn't realise that, because he comes in, sits down, has his cup of coffee, reads his paper, tells a few stories, and then his wife picks him up, because she's obviously had her hair done, and down the road, and off he goes. And I keep saying to everybody, there's going to come a time where there's not many of the World Cup 66 lads left, and they're probably the only people in your lifetime, or our lifetime, will have ever won the World Cup for England, which is a country which is what started the game of football. And I feel very honoured every time I see him, just because of what he's done for sport. And I think you mentioned my dad being down a pit, my granddad being down a pit, Mark's granddad being down a pit, but them generations coming through were sport orientated from the Milburn section, the Charlton section. I'd like to think when I started playing cricket, it got to a level that young cricketers wanted to aspire. I've got somebody else to aspire to now, which is fantastic. The next generation comes through that way, because I think at Asherton Cricket Club, Michael will tell you, before 2005 Ashes on a Sunday morning, Saturday and Sunday morning, it'd be about 30, 40 kids. We won the Ashes in 2005, and by the end of that September, we had 250 kids on the field. We're having to change the nights to accommodate however many kids. And it'll only get better. England win the Ashes this year, when he's involved, and it'll go again. Johnny Wilkinson kicked that ball in 2003, and the clamour for rugby in England was massive.
That happens for Aboriginal sportsmen too. The impact on their young people, if it's young guys, or if it's a fellow, footballer or whatever, or tennis player, or something like that. They just.
They need role models.
They need role models. Yeah. Absolutely, it's so important.
I think what comes with that, of course, with the me as well, obviously, but you're under scrutiny every hour of every day. You're all role models.
Yes.
And people look up to you. And if the media can get a bad story on you, they'll get a bad story on you. So you've got to be very careful at all times.
You've got to be so careful, because I know various stories, similar stories at home, where interviewing some school children once, just about various education stuff, and there were some scandals to do with footballers in Australia some years ago, so some various scandals, and he was saying, this young fellow was saying about his uncle, who wasn't famous or anything like that, but he was a good footballer and teaching him and other kids and so on. And he said something like, he's really good. He's a good uncle so-and-so, He's not like those other fellows. He's very good. Do you know what I mean? So he's only 12 or 11 or something, but he watches TV and he knows, right from wrong, and he knew, you follow the good guy, you know what I mean? Not the one who's mixed up in scandal and all that. So he could tell the difference, It's so important, I think, for young people to have that example before them,
Yeah.
So you have to be so careful,
Absolutely. And these are angels.
Footsteps, don't you? You want to follow people's footsteps in the community. So, for example, when I was a kid, I used to imagine going to the local cricket club. He was the person that I looked up to and thought that I want to be like him and experience all the things he's experiencing. And then that gives me that drive to then. And I suppose it's the same in your communities. If someone's doing well, they look up to them and they want to be the next one on the next one. That's
not just play like that or whatever, the skill or whatever, but be like that person, act like that, character, and strength, and honour.
That's really important. The difference with these, they've both played at the highest level, but they're both thoroughly, really decent people.
Yes.
There's no egos.
So
They'll speak to anybody. They're really nice, honest, decent people, and that's because of where they come from.
With the decline of the football club in Newcastle and the alienation, certainly that I've experienced over the last, 15 years now, or 10 years, I suppose, but all the scandals with Freddie Shepherd first, and then with the decline under Ashley. Do you think that you're going to get a much bigger groundswell behind Ashington as a football club? Do you feel like, because I certainly feel alienated as a Newcastle fan, I give up my season ticket, done all these sorts of things. I'm not going to go back under Ashley. Do you find that more and more people are coming into Ashington now?
I think they will. I can only see it getting bigger and better. I think from the simple fact that countless number of people, and not just Newcastle, mind. There's a big branch of Sunderland supporters from Ellington, from Cresswell, from Ashington, and there's 6 or 7 of them have stopped us in the street, and maybe it's because obviously what we're here. I'm not renewing my season ticket. I'm going to come watch Ashington next year, and they're just sick of the, And I've done quite a bit of media stuff on, obviously, since I've come into Ashington, and people are saying the difference and what's the difference, and people can relate to people playing for Ashington. We played, and I mentioned it. I do mention this example a lot. People pay 500, 600 quid for a season ticket at Newcastle and Sunderland, and they don't have any identification with the players. They've got no connection or anything with the players. And the players aren't really connected with the supporters because some of them aren't really that bothered. They see it as like the paycheck and the way they go. For me, with the example I always, we played one of the better teams in the league last year on a Wednesday night. We had an hour and 20 minutes to get there and back, and we were getting back at Ashington in probably around about 11:30 at night. And 2 of my lads started night shift at 12 o'clock. Now, people can understand how much that means to play, to then come back, to then go to work. They want to do it, so they'll pay that 5-6 quid to get in, to actually watch and identify with these people, as opposed to paying sort of 35 quid a game and not really see somebody try, not really see anything like that. So from that aspect, I think we'll get a lot more supporters from Newcastle, Sunderland coming to here. And I don't think it's just here. I think North Shields, Whitley Bay have had, and Blythe have had a big surge of Newcastle fans go to watch them. I think Whitley Bay, North Shields last year on a midweek game had 1,500 people. And I think a lot of them are not Newcastle fans who have just been disillusioned with what's going on at Newcastle and Sunderland, and they've decided to go and watch that. So hopefully there'll be a footfall coming this way as well.